Familia, I am so excited for today's episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Variant Villains, which is a X-Men Marvel t-shirt company. And this week on Thursday, they're going to be dropping a hookup style X-Men anime t-shirt. So you know the Hookups brand from like the 90s, early aughts. That's when they were most popular. They're still around today, but it has the very sexy anime girls and it's like a skateboarding company. It's very Blink 182 Enema of the State vibes. They're doing that, but with the ex ladies. So you got Psylocke, you got Mystique. That is going to be dropping Thursday. You all know I'm an early aughts person. That was my era when I was coming up. I actually worked at Pacific Sunwear and I bought a whole mess of hookup shirts. I actually still have hookup shirts right now because the brand is still around. And I love wearing them. So you sort of see me sometimes wearing them. I don't wear the ones that are a little bit more in your face about how sexy these characters are, but I still have them nonetheless, and I love them more than anything. So Variant Villains, they are sponsoring today's podcast. You'll see us wearing the shirts. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I love, again, that 90s, early aughts surfer vibes. Couldn't be happier to have them sponsor today's episode. What's also really fun about today's episode is that we are reviewing and discussing new X-Men issue 124. And as all of you know, it's usually just me and Flink on these reviews. However, we had to bring in one of my favorite Familia members, who is Tim. And Tim always comments on our YouTube videos, on our posts. He has such incredibly insightful comments, and we've been talking on DMs, and it is such a honor to have him on today's episode. To give a little background on Tim, Tim is a semi-retired podcaster who nonetheless currently co-hosts Exposition, a multimedia X-Men podcast courtesy of North-South Connection, and 9021 No So, a Beverly Hills 90210 retrospective. Longtime X-Men fanatic and Richmond, Virginia native, Tim is a graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University, where he is rumored to have majored in X-Men continuity with a minor in Claremontian studies. In addition to comics and disreputable network primetime dramas, Tim's interests include Marvel Legends, horror films, professional wrestling, allegedly, food, writing, doom scrolling, spreadsheets, and the music of Jimmy Eat World. Familia, this is why we had to have him on today's episode. This checks all the boxes. Well, except for wrestling. I'm not into wrestling, but we love doom scrolling. We love Jimmy Eat World. Obviously, we're huge Marvel Legends fans, and we're going to be discussing horror films. So please enjoy today's very special episode of Power of X-Men, sponsored by Variant Villains and the incredible Tim, who is joining us.
Welcome to Power of X-Men, the podcast where we review every single issue of the revolutionary, groundbreaking, punk epic, mutant masterpiece known as Morrison's New X-Men. I am Tim.
I'm the Uncanny Dayspring.
And I'm the new Flankman.
And holy frack, we have Tim on today's episode of Power of X-Men. Tim, welcome to our sacred circle that Flink and I do. We don't let anyone else in. You are the first one.
Oh my gosh. I feel very special, you guys. I am privileged and honored to be here. I love doing that little intro. I love hearing the intro every time I listen to this show. And now I'm like, oh, this is me doing the intro and going. And I'm sure all of your listeners, who's Tim? Well, here I am in the flesh, as it were.
You leave the best comments on Power of X-Men, and I've listened to your podcast before, so I love everything. Like, I love your perspective on everything. But I need to ask, though, as a 90210 scholar, who is your favorite 90210 character in all of like the 90210 universe?
I mean, look, growing up, growing up, I was a Dylan fanboy. What can you say? I mean, with his brooding Lord Byron quotes and his big swoopy hair and his five head even. I couldn't get enough of Luke Perry, the late tragically departed Luke Perry. As an adult, I think revisiting the show, and I think, I do a podcast on this, as you well know. As we're gonna get closer to that era when I was watching it in real time, I think I gravitate more towards Valerie, to tell you the truth.
Oh.
I mean, controversially, I love Shannon Doherty. I mean, iconic. Thought it was a little bit of an upgrade when Valerie came in. There was a part of me that was like, the Brenda character is great, but I'm kind of okay with taking a break from her. Didn't necessarily want it to be forever, but when they brought in Tiffany Amber Thiessen, it was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now. So I love the energy she brought to the show. I love her, obviously.
Kelly
But yeah.
Kapowski.
I have.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I wasn't even like a Saved by the Bell fan. I mean, I knew that's what she came from. I had watched the show, but I was not nearly as obsessively into Saved by the Bell. I mean, it was just kind of something I watched sometimes when I caught it. So yeah, she's like, I don't know, kind of forefront of my mind is maybe just she changed the dynamic of that show so much.
Well, a tornado's gonna hit Beverly Hills. Do you remember the radio promos for it? And
I
it was
do.
Valerie in her like crop top, and it's like at the
Uh-huh.
barbecue scene. And again,
Yes.
I was a big Saved by the Bell fan. I was a big Saved by the Bell, the college years fans as
Yes.
well.
Okay.
So when
Okay.
Tiffany Amber Thiessen shows up and her hair is significantly shorter than how it was on the college years, I was just like
Hmm.
losing my shit. That probably happened in like fourth, fifth grade for me. And
Yeah.
I lost my mind. I love Shando too. I don't remember. I haven't really revisited 90210 in any actual significance since I first saw it as a kid. But I was sad when Shando left. Shando is my favorite character, and her podcast that she no longer does. She was taking like
Mm.
listener questions. I asked her, "What's your relationship with Tiffany Amber Thiessen?" And she answered
Oh.
it. And she had mentioned that Tiffany Amber Thiessen was a really great person, and that she was dating David at the time, and
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
they had partied together at one point. So because she
Oh,
always
okay.
gets asked about Rose McGowan, but she never gets asked about Tiffany Amber Thiessen, and God rest.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of a shame they never shared the screen, especially in that show together. I'm not sure how that would have worked, but it would have been cool to see, if nothing else. And I just hate so much that Shando and Luke Perry. I mean, the two of the two most iconic characters you think of from that show, no longer with us. Just a bummer.
I'm being quiet because I've never watched a single episode of
What?
90210 in my life.
What? How do I not
I
know this
wasn't
about you?
I wasn't allowed to.
Oh man.
I was just a little one. Don't come for me.
I
So
can't believe
it's
Carol did not let you watch 90210.
Carol.
it wasn't Carol. It was
Oh,
Carrie.
oh, it's Carrie.
I wasn't allowed to watch Fox like outright, like Simpsons, 90210, In Living Color, all of these things. Like my across the board, my dad was against
Mm.
Fox in general, prime time. I mean, thank God I had Fox Kids. Who would I be if I hadn't had Fox Kids and
Hmm.
X-Men and Power Rangers? But yeah, no, primetime Fox was literally, it was like you're not allowed to watch that.
I will tell you that I could have dealt with some supervision because I will never forget the episode where Kimberly Shaw takes off
Oh
her
God.
wig.
Yeah.
I was but a child when I saw this, and I was traumatized for an entire week seeing Marcia Cross rip out her wig and a huge
That
scar on the
giant
side.
scar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it traumatized me. I mean, it
Oh
made me a
no.
Marcia Cross fan, but still.
Well, yeah, you kept, mind you kept watching it, of course.
Mhm.
I wasn't traumatized. Well, I was a big Melrose. I mean, in fifth grade, what are we doing watching Melrose Place? So, again, Fox Primetime, the most scandalous network in the '90s that there was. But yeah, that scene for sure burned into my memory. I don't think I was so much traumatized as I was just confused because, like, she had, I mean, primetime soap opera, right? She had died, she'd come back to life. Turned out she wasn't dead, she was just in a coma. And then you're thinking, okay, that's the extent of this, right? It can't get crazier than that. And then, boom, the wig reveal is just jaw dropping. So,
Listen, redhead's coming back from the
ugh.
dead.
We should have been
Oh,
used
you.
to it. We should have seen it coming, right? I mean,
It's weird. I didn't. Of course, I obviously wasn't allowed to watch Melrose Place either. But like,
oh
for
my
some
God, yeah.
reason, I am more familiar with like the iconic Melrose Place moments. Like, I can picture
Huh.
Marcia Cross taking off her wig. I can picture Heather Locklear in a fight in the pool. Like, I can picture Linda Gray coming in as Heather Locklear's
Oh.
mother and spinning off
Mm-hmm.
into Models Inc. Like, I know all of these things. Oh, yeah, I know you're going to name drop. Go ahead.
I have, well, Stephanie Romanoff, who I'm good friends with, was on Models Inc. And all I do
I
is talk to her about Models Inc.
Oh
She's
my
And
here
yet you
like,
God.
have given me no answers on Linda Gray. I
I
have
will give
asked
them to
you to
you.
get
I
the
will give them to
tea.
you. I will give
Because
them, but I fucking love Models Inc. And she's here like, Stephanie is like, no one ever talks about Models Inc. I'm like, that's all
No.
I think about.
You can't.
So,
Well, that show ended on a hell of a cliffhanger. I mean, one season, I'd say one season, but back then a season of television was 30 episodes. So, I mean,
right.
it's still a shitload of television to watch, but that ended on like a big cliffhanger. I remember. I didn't really regularly watch it. I would just sort of dip in here and there because, I mean, it was a Melrose spinoff, but that ended, it was like, oh, wait, now I'm kind of getting into this. And then it like never came back.
Yeah, well, Linda Gray is available. Somebody just Stephanie
Right?
is available. Get Linda and Stephanie together. We'll make it on Zoom if we have to. Solve
okay.
that cliffhanger.
All right, but all right. So, Tim, give us a little background though, because we could do a 90210 podcast where we try to
Ugh.
sell Flink on 90210.
Oh my God.
But what is your X-Men? Let's switch gears into X-Men. What is your X-Men history? How did you first come to the X-Men?
I don't even, we've talked about this a little bit, and it's kind of, it's one of those things before I have like really concrete memories. I feel like I was sort of already into comic books and superheroes, right? Like I don't have any memories of my life where I wasn't like a fan of Superman, let's say. You know, that first 1978 Richard Donner film just on constant rotation. Me and my older cousin, who I is a year and 10 days older than me, we basically grew up together. I don't have any siblings, but this was like closest thing I had to like a brother, right? So we spent a lot of time together growing up, and I guess you could say as the older kid, he was kind of the tastemaker as far as deciding, okay, as little kids, here's what we're into now. And like kids, we would go through just different phases of being into one thing or another, and they would never really stick. And I don't know. And I think when X Men made it into the rotation, and it would have been like that, I mean, that first wave of Toy Biz action figures from what, 1991? The big ad for it on the back of X-Men #1. That was probably my first exposure to X. It's probably not the first time I'd heard the term, right? But as far as being familiar with, here are the characters associated with this thing I generally have a sense of called X-Men. Like, oh, Wolverine and Archangel and Nightcrawler. These are really cool. Like, just to get in, to be introduced to those characters for the first time is just kind of mind blowing, especially at that age. I mean, that's the power of X-Men, right? And here it
All
was.
right, that is our like clip that we're going to be using forever. But I agree with you, and Flink and I have talked about this before because my gateway was the Fleer Ultra Rogue, and
Hmm.
for me, it was like to who is this woman? Who is this
Yeah.
character? Like it was just so mind blowing, as you said.
And it's just, and really, it's just kind of the visual. It's maybe a factoid here and there, and it's just one of those. That's your hook, and you have to know not just more, but everything about
Yeah.
this. It's just that kind of obsessive drive. And so I think from the action figures, that led to, I mean, it must have been that first Jim Lee X-Men issue, which every single kid, every household in America had a copy of.
If not five
Um,
copies of.
got 5 copies of, yeah, exactly. Which is insane to me when you go on eBay nowadays and look at like, I mean, these were like quarter bin, standbys. This issue, no matter what cover it was, I mean, you would just find bins and bins stacked away in any given comic shop. And now you go on eBay and it's like people are trying to sell like sets of these for like upwards of $25 or so. And it's like, who is buying this? Who doesn't
Oh my
already have
God.
it? It's
Don't
just it
even get me started. Like certified copies at via
yeah,
work go for so much money, and I'm like, wait a minute, doesn't, like you said, doesn't everybody have a copy of this stashed away? But
unbelievable. Yeah.
it's
I guess
insane. It's insane.
maybe it took a few decades for that, speculator market to actually now you will be able to put your kids through college if you
Right.
invest in X-Men #1.
Who
Um
would have ever thought that in like 97, 98, when Marvel is bankrupt and the
yeah,
comic
right.
industry is going up in flames, that, oh
You
wait,
can't
all of
yeah.
these, it's crazy.
You
It's
can't give this issue away back then, and now I mean, people are selling it for, I can't believe what amounts. Anyway, so I have a vivid memory of like just kind of thumbing through that issue on the school bus, and again, recognizing the characters from, the action figures, the ones who were in that issue, even though they looked a bit different, you knew who was who. And I'd probably gotten into the trading cards by that time as well. And I mean, it was just like this. It was like a steamroller back then, just this media franchise. How it was one thing onto the next, onto the next. Action figures, comics, the animated series starting up was obviously a big deal. I remember greatly looking forward to that. I mean, they didn't even call it a series premiere. It was like a special sneak preview or whatever
Yeah.
that they did, Halloween, right?
yeah,
In
Yep.
1992, that morning.
yeah,
So, and
it's
that was, of course,
perfect.
mind blowing. Just, oh my God. I mean, just seeing the promos leading up to it and then sitting down to actually watch it and having something that lived up to the hype, just unbelievable. So, it was just, there's no looking back, I feel like, after that. And at that point, I'm pretty much buying the comics regularly. Probably missing an issue here and there. I am a little kid. Let's give me some grace. But from that point on, it was baked into my blood. So yeah,
And I feel like
early
that's pretty,
adopter.
I feel like that's pretty typical of people of our generation who are X-Men fans. I feel like once it like clicked for you, that's it. You're in
It
it
Hmm.
clicked.
for life. It may ebb and flow a little bit. We speak all the time. In high school, it kind of receded a little bit for us, but it was always still sort of simmering in the background there. But yeah,
Yeah,
once it clicks in your brain, it's like for a certain person, it's crazy how it sticks with you.
Yeah, and we talk about this too, Flink, where it's like we had to go out and find this information. The kids today, they just go on Wikipedia or uncannyxmen.net, and the entire information about the character is available to you. But when you're collecting those Fleer Ultras, when you're picking up these issues at your local comic book store, again, you're a kid, so you're not going every Wednesday. You're going
sure.
whenever your parents want to take you, and they may
Which
or
was
may not,
never.
which was never, and they may or may not have the issues you want. So you had to piece together this entire universe from word of mouth, from the little Fleer Ultra cards, from the action figures. So that's why it sticks with us and it means a lot to us.
Now,
Yeah,
I
and,
will
and
say
no,
we were
go ahead.
shading my parents a little bit earlier, but they did get me a subscription to X-Men. So I was actually following for several years there in the 90s. I was following the narrative completely, but also
Mm.
completely unaware that there was adjectiveless X-Men and uncanny X-Men. So in the
Oh
end,
yeah, uh-huh.
I'm only getting half the story.
I kind of
Wow.
had a similar experience with that, whereas adjectiveless X-Men was easy to follow. Low issue numbers, get in on the ground floor there, and then there'd be like this other series I was aware of, and I was like, why is there this X-Men title that has like numbers in the upper 200s? And I'm just like, how long has this been around? Just and again, trying to discover all these things that are not immediately accessible to you in its own way. I feel like that was used as a bit of a draw. There was like a marketing savvy to that, I think, where it's like the inaccessibility in its own way was kind of there was a mystique to that, and it
Yeah.
was again that frenzy of I've got to know more, I've got to know everything, and they're not giving it to me. So that's why I'm going to keep showing up until I
But
get there.
this is what baffles me though when Marvel is like they start off at a first issue because we are like they're lifelong dedicated fans. We were thrown into whatever
Hmm.
issue and had to figure it out. And that was part of exactly what you said, the mystique and that hunger to know more. So I don't understand their obsession with constant relaunches going back to one. We talked about this with Joe Casey, Flink. They relaunched the Morrison era by New X-Men 114. And then I'm forgetting where Joe Casey picked up 390 something, but there was no first issue. It was just
Right.
the status quo changed. We're still
Yeah.
continuing along, and you had to figure it out. And that was fine because it was such a good story. You did want to go back and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad that we don't have that anymore, that you can just sort of go online and figure it all out and get all the information that you need ahead of yet another new number one. I don't know. It was like the allure of it to me was always being dropped into a story in progress, characters that are well established. All of this new number one stuff, new direction. I'm so sick of it. I could just die.
If anything, that's got to be harder for new readers to keep up with. I mean, how many new issue ones of like Daredevil alone have there been in the past, I don't know, 10 years? Like, who the hell knows where to even start? Or if you hear about some great story you want to check out, it's like, which of the 7 volumes of this is it in? Which Daredevil issue 9 am I supposed to be reading? Because I have so many options here on Marvel Unlimited. It's just that kind of thing is really off-putting to me. I understand why they do it because I mean, let's face it, they're out of tricks at this point as far as trying to goose sales on a lot of these titles, and that's one reliable thing. You just keep going back to that well, but it's just as like a long-term strategy, it sucks so much. It sucks for long-term and newer readers, I think.
There was that period there where we had, like, when Spider Gwen launched. I think there were two
Oh my
Spider
God.
Gwen
Yeah.
number one issues released in 2015 alone.
Hmm.
Like, thankfully, they're not doing shit like that all the time, but it just, how is that not so confusing for new readers releasing new number ones so close to each other? Like, okay, oh, I got this number one issue. I like it so
Hmm.
much. Say you get that as a back issue, and then you try to seek out issue number two. There are two number twos from the same year. You're not like, I don't, who is this a successful strategy for? It's really not
No one.
working.
And the
Well,
legacy numbering where they try to have it both ways, I'm like, ooh, stop. It's the worst of both worlds. It's not the best. I don't know who that's for either. You cannot like have your cake and eat it. I promise us dinosaurs who really, are disappointed by the fact that Uncanny X-Men is still not running now 700, 800 some odd issues in, and that's what appears on the cover, but it is what it is. Like, please don't put 2 issue numbers on the same book. That's just it's madness. Or just to change it in the middle of, it's like, hey, this was issue 23, now all of a sudden 400. You're like,
well,
what?
Yeah.
and they don't do anything for it. They did that recently with X Factor and X Force, and
Hmm.
there was no reason to put that legacy number on there because it wasn't a monumental issue or it wasn't celebratory in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, let's just gin up the sales for this for one issue, and then it's just. But anyway, don't want to get
So,
too off
what is
this
your
podcast.
temperature on modern comics? How do you feel about From the Ashes?
Um, I think it says something. I'm not really going out of my way to read it at this point. I'm pretty much strictly following on Marvel Unlimited, and not even really prioritizing it because you've already got that baked in delay, which would normally bother me not being able to read an issue and be up on all the current events as they happen. But even with that, I'm like, oh, new issue of X-Men dropped on Unlimited. I'll check that out. And it's like, I'll get to it if I do. If not, am I that pressed about it? Sort of. No. And I hate saying that. I really do. A little bit of to some extent, though, I'm like, how could they follow Krakoa? In some ways, I feel like, and I had my, as you guys have as well, creative issues with Krakoa and sort of the direction it took, especially post Hickman and how they ultimately wound that whole thing down. But in a lot of ways, it maybe broke the storytelling engine of
Yeah.
what the X-Men is, in ways that you can't really just walk back. It's like it was it was like too much progress. It was too much of a win for these characters who historically you've always rooted for and they've never gotten that win. So once you do, it's going to be nothing but massively depressing to say they had it all and then they lost it, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
maybe that's what the story should be. Maybe that's what the status quo should be for a little while instead of just sort of hand waving it and just pretending, well, that was something we did, now on to the next thing. By design, I think maybe this era had to flop. It's sort of that it's sort of that rebound relationship, maybe. Once you get out of a long-term relationship, and you have sort of a fling with the next person before, maybe settling back into another long-term relationship. I hope that's what this is. I hope this is not, no, really, this is what the X-Men's future is going to be for, you know, the foreseeable future, which is one flop era after another. I would hate that a lot for us as fans and for this franchise.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way of thinking about it. Like I hope that this is the rebound and that we can get back to more interesting stories because the thing of it is like we are all busy adults these days. We have
Hmm.
jobs, we have relationships, we have family and friends and things that keep us busy, and we only have so much time to devote to reading comic books. I mean, I would love to to read comic books all day, and I'm more fortunate than most that I reading comic books is literally a part of my job, but not modern comic books. So
Yeah.
it's like if I only have such limited time to devote to this hobby in which I love, why would I spend the time reading things that I'm not really enjoying when there's
Hmm.
hundreds, thousands of issues that I know that I'm interested in, that I know that I'll enjoy or that I've wanted to check out for years, decades at this point, classic stories. So it's just there's nothing that compels me as someone who has transitioned more from a compulsive, like narrative following comic reader to just somebody who enjoys reading all kinds of comics. There's nothing about the current state of X books that is reeling me in and making me want to read these. And it's a problem that there's three people like
I was
us.
going to say that exact thing. Yeah, such a problem. All three of us were diehard fans. We're here on a Saturday morning to talk about X-Men, and none of us are going to our comic book store on Wednesdays to pick up the latest issues. And we have
No,
discretionary income to spend on it.
Right. Well, and I hope this doesn't come across to I say younger readers, younger listeners. Are there even any younger readers
Nope,
left at the, I
I
mean,
don't think so.
but these hypothetical, I always talk about our hypothetical podcast listeners on shows that I do, but hypothetical readers and fans of the X-Men who may be hearing this and are a bit younger of a different generation will say, I really hope this doesn't come across as, oh, these fucking old men in their 40s just talking about how everything sucks now and just, yeah, the old man yells at cloud type stuff. And it's really like, I don't mean to sound like that or be like that because I haven't always been that way. It's, as long as I have been into the X-Men, this is kind of a recent development for me. Is that, I feel that way about other things I'm into, but I'm not used to being as apathetic towards
We
X-Men as I
we
am right
stuck
now.
through IVX. We stuck through
Hello.
IVX
Say no more.
and Age of X-Men. We were reading the
Oh
books
my
weekly
God.
still, and those were
Being
what we would
incel Nate Gray, yes.
yeah, we thought those were low points in the overall narrative. And wow, I can't believe we're disassociated like this. And it is baffling. But I have to tell you though, I'm going to politely disagree, Tim, that for me, there's nothing more gratifying than shaking my fist at the clowns and
Really?
being the old man who's angry. I agree with you. It's there is a journey to get there at in life, but sometimes you're just like you're throwing your hands up and you're like, there's nothing left to do. But I
Look,
don't
I guess
think
there is value in being the elder millennial who's telling it like it is. I
I
guess.
can't believe that we're elder millennials now. We were the problematic generation coming up a couple of years ago, and now we're the old. Now we're
Yeah.
like synonymous to boomers, and I'm like,
All
Oh
that
God.
Fox we watched,
yeah.
primetime Fox in the 90s that ruined us.
In my day, you had to tune in on Thursday nights if you wanted to see something, or you missed the fuck out.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tim, did you like me and Flink that like probably around Onslaught, Zero Tolerance, you tapped out of the books, and then Morrison brought you back to the comics, or did you stay reading through the 12 and everything?
I'll just say through the 12. Such a benchmark of just
The
low
12.
create like
And
Speaking of low
yet,
points,
and yet, it's still a better story than stuff we're
it's
getting
still,
today.
and yet I was still way more locked into
Yeah,
that. I mean, at least it had like Alan Davis art and
yeah,
all these great artists and what. But I would say I did tough it out. It was a little bit of a slog, especially man, especially like post. I was into Onslaught. I'm like you,
yeah,
where I kind of think Onslaught gets a bad rap. As a story, it's maybe not the most cohesive, but there are some like killer individual issues as part of that crossover. But anyway,
I
we'll
agree.
talk about that on the 30th anniversary or whatever next year. But then, like that post Onslaught era, where I mean, you could probably tell me if I'm wrong here. Scott Lobdell wanted to kind of hit the ground running and have like the OZT invasion happen, like right at like the issue or so after Xavier is taken away, right?
Yeah.
Like so there wouldn't be that period of sort of nothing happening until the crossover proper that summer with Operation Zero Tolerance. So it was kind of like, okay, nothing's really going on, and then you get to OZT, and you're like, all right, so this should give the book a real bounce, right? And it did until it didn't. Like I really hate that ending, just the way it sort of fizzles out. Again, no disrespect to Scott Lobdell. I think he did tremendous work throughout most of his run, and I know that story was kind of taken away from him in
Yeah, it was
terms of the
hijacked.
direction he wanted things to end up in. So I was like, man, this was like a wet fart the way that it ended, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know that I can still keep doing this because again, it was just that enthusiasm gap that I started to feel, and I'm in like seventh or eighth grade, still dutifully reading my comics, and now for the first time, I'm feeling very critical towards my comics. I think. But I did tough it out. I think I maybe threatened to drop the books
I mean,
to stop.
we've all been there.
We've all made those hollow
Yeah.
threats, yes. And it was just, and I wasn't reading like everything. I was reading like, Uncanny and Adjectiveless and like Generation X, X Factor, if it was still going at that point. I think it was.
I think it was.
And X-Man, right? And that was probably the extent of it. And there was a part of me that's like, I should just like, this is kind of a lot of money to be spending that I don't always have as a kid. I should just like kind of cull some of this and drop some books. And I didn't do it. If anything, I probably picked up more stuff. coming out of like Heroes Return. But yeah, I kind of like suffered through that, and then you get to, like you said, the 12, which was its own set of problems. I mean, we stepped right over Siegel and Casey. That
Mm,
was a lot of unfulfilled promise there. More disappointment.
yeah, the Phoenix Saga sequel, or the Dark
That
Phoenix, yeah,
never,
that never
that
happened.
never
And
never materialized. Then right on to Claremont's second coming. That, boy, you can't go home
mm,
again, I guess. And that was really sad because it really felt like the editorial office doing like a Hail Mary. It was sort of like, all right, well, if this doesn't get him back, nothing will. And that didn't even, I mean, I don't even think he was back for a full year. It was maybe 9, 10 months
yeah,
before it was like, ooh, we got to do another course correction. So I don't know, having gone through that, it's called a trial of many, about a 2 year period, 2 to 3 year period. And then, okay, here's new X-Men, here's Grant Morrison. That was a real like light at the end of the tunnel for me personally. It was just so different. It was so refreshing. I think I would have taken anything at that point, even if it wasn't particularly good, as long as it was just different and fresh compared to what I had been used to. So that's kind of how New X-Men started. I embraced it with open arms, I really have to say, and that's why I look. People can be entitled to whatever opinions they have about it. You're by no means are you obligated to like this just because it's different. But I think there is something to be said for putting in the work and having endured what the X-Men had been for a long time and then getting to this, which is so
agree.
radically different.
I take us to church, Tim, because I agree. Because I don't think folks understand when they slide into our DMs and leave comments saying that, oh, we don't like new X-Men. It was so weird. We don't like the costumes. They don't know the context in which this was published in, and sort of what we
Mm-hmm.
had suffered through to get stories like this and quality stories like this was a return to form in terms of narrative for the X-Men.
Yeah, I think there's like a certain context that you have to sort of have to really enjoy new X-Men as we do. Like I'm not saying that you can't without having lived it, but I'm saying in order to understand why these stories are so important and mean so much to people, I think you at least have to be informed of the context of where things were going into this, where the world was at this point. Like with that context, I don't see how anyone could dislike it, but fair enough if you
I
do,
know. Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
context is important.
I just, I, and again, I don't want to sound shitty because not everyone does this, and I am all for constructive criticism. I really am. There is a tendency I feel, especially when it comes to this run and how some people will dog it. It feels like they're talking out of both sides of their mouths a little bit, where they're like, "Oh, I tried to read Morrison's New X-Men, and it wasn't for me. It wasn't my X-Men," is what a lot of their beef comes down to. It wasn't my X-Men. And I'll be like, okay, well, so what's your X-Men? And they'll talk about things in the 90s that they remember very fondly. And I'm like, okay, so you were reading all that and loving all that, and then it was like Morrison came along and took all that away. And they're like, oh, well, I hadn't read the X-Men since 1996. And so I'm like, by your own admission, you're saying you dipped out during your X-Men, right? So clearly something wasn't working for you. Like, how can you say this isn't my X-Men when you were not even reading your X-Men?
But I'm going to be a
It's like,
little
what?
especially in this issue, and for the family at home today, we are reviewing and discussing New X-Men issue 124. But this issue in particular, I saw so much of Claremont in here,
Mm,
and what made the X-Men special that when people say they don't like Morrison and it's not my X-Men, I think they're just referring to the fact that they're wearing black leather costumes. That's it. I'm going to be
Yep.
that crass and say it's just because they're not wearing colorful, bright costumes, because there's no way that you're going to read this issue and say this is not somehow a cultural sample or a reaction to Claremont X-Men. I mean, even like the passing comment that is made here, I'm forgetting who made it, but oh, it was Cassandra Nova being like, oh, your species is going to be wiped out. We're going to clone you mutants on another planet. That was a reference to what happened with Charles and how his body was cloned and the Shi'ar technology. So I don't know. The only thing I can infer is that when people are like, I don't like Morrison's new X-Men, one, they haven't read the run in its entirety, or two, they mean the art. They don't like Quitely's
It's
art.
not
They don't
Jim
like
Lee.
the
It's not
costume.
Andy
Yeah.
Kubert. Yeah, it's not Technicolor
Yeah.
90s stuff. Yeah.
And even though hi-fi design, and I think I do have some criticism on the art today. And listen, we love
Well,
Igor Cordy very much. We've been trying to get him on the podcast. We've been negotiating a theme, but
okay.
I think what saves the art today in today's issue is hi-fi designs, where it's very bright and colorful, because the art was a little hard to get through in this issue. But I'd be curious what you guys think of your first impressions of today's issue.
First thing that comes to mind for sure, the art. And God bless Igor Corday. I know that he had kind of an impossible task before him at the time. Not only, being the fill-in for Frank Quietly, who, I mean, look, that's the distinctive visual. Look, we say Morrison's X-Men, but really it's Morrison Quietly. But yeah, Igor Corday here, sort of. I mean, I guess to keep the book on a reasonably. I don't know what the cadence was in terms of if the delays were really starting to rack up at this point in the run, but we've got to get the book out, and I guess it's a rush job. And this may be a very traumatic period of his life to talk about. Maybe that's why it's difficult
Oh,
to
it
book them
is.
as a.
It
I know he
100%
caught
is.
hell. He caught
Yeah.
hell at the time.
So the reason
Um,
why we can't get him on the podcast, and I'm sure you'd be okay that I said this, is that it was exactly what you just said to him.
oh my
You're like,
gosh.
well, I'm happy to come on the podcast, but I don't want to talk about my time with the X-Men. It was
Wow.
and he had mentioned it was exactly what you just said. It's a traumatic moment. So that's why I was like,
I
well,
mean,
we
I
can
feel
talk about other things.
I feel badly for him,
Yeah.
honestly, because there are pages where you can see, like, oh wow, like if he had had the time to sit down and really work his magic here, like the whole book should look like this. And I'm thinking of like a specific image of like Beast or Jean or someone where like he just nails the body language, and it's so great and it conveys so much in like a single panel. But then the rest of it will be like so hastily sketched, like the background just sort of is very blurry. There's just not a lot of rendering on these sort of ancillary characters and whatever's not going on immediately in front of you, and it's like a real mixed bag, I guess, is what it amounts to in terms of the art. But having said that, I really can't hold that against him, just with that knowledge of, I know what he was up against just because I remember reading about it at the time.
I don't think there's a lot of really wonderful things that, even stands like us can say about the art. I don't think it's as bad as
I
people
don't either.
want to say that it is. And I have some specific thoughts on specific pages when we get to them that I will mention. So far as, like, just first impressions of the issue, I'm gonna be honest, this is not one of my favorites of the series. And again, we can dive into that. There's specific things that I don't love about it, but am I ever gonna say I outright dislike an issue of New X-Men? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's a masterpiece in comparison to 90% of the stuff we've gotten since then.
So we kick off this issue with Cyclops and Zorn being held captive on one of the Imperial Guard's spaceships. And before them is Cassandra Nova. in Xavier's body. And Flink, we were talking about this last episode, which is Cassandra Nova mind controlling everyone? And yes, she is. I think I was confused on it, but you were pretty
Yeah,
clear on it.
you were wrong. You were
Yeah,
wrong.
I was just like, I don't understand why are they attacking? Like, but yeah, so she had won the previous battle, and she has captured the entire minds of Lalandra and the Shi'ar Guard, and they have started their disinfection or sterilization, excuse me, sterilization of the mutants. And we have Cyclops and Zorn who are before them. So those are our opening pages.
Yeah, and I mean, Cyclops is trying his best to convince Lalandra that this isn't Charles, this isn't Charles, and for his trouble, she spits, literally spits in his
Ugh.
face as he's being hung upside down. Like, rough day for Scott Summers in space here.
Yeah, no doubt. And as much as I am like the card carrying Cyclops was right apologist, I think on this episode, I really have to admire the composure of Scott Summers here in this situation. Of all people, I don't think it gets talked about enough how much he should really hate Lilandra.
Oh, I
Like he
agree.
should hate this like personal animosity there that doesn't really ever come up. And I'm surprised no one's done anything with it. I mean, this is even before going back before like all the Phoenix stuff where, you know, this empress of this galactic empire, which, you know, which don't even get me started on the shady stuff they get up to, right? On a daily basis, you know, is pronouncing judgment on the woman that he loves. I mean, even before that, wasn't his father like in a Shi'ar slave pen when he was abducted? I know that wasn't under legit Lalandra's regime, but still,
No, it's Shi'ar. Like they
it's the
abducted his
Shi'ar, yeah,
dad, his
yeah.
mom. Like, yeah, I
His
agree.
mother, they kill his mother. Like it's just he should, and for him to like look at her and what she represents, and again, this massive star-spanning empire that she kind of seems to condone like some pretty horrible things, and has affected his life in very negative ways personally. I wish that he'd be like, I hate you so much, honestly. And like it's taking everything I have not to turn you into a shadow on the wall. I don't care. She's like the evil stepmother in a lot of ways. um, but yeah, I enjoyed this opening scene. Zorn is kind of adorable. You see why he really caught on, I think, with readers. And I'm not, you know, trying to get ahead of ourselves, but why what happens is such a gut punch here, reading it in retrospect and knowing and seeing how it all fits. And like, man, like, you know, it's like they really had us with something here. And they had Scott. You see why Scott is so like on board with this guy and how ultimately, you know, again, how
They're
he's going to feel
bonding.
about all this. Yeah, they're bonding
This is how, I mean, Scott went to go get him. They
in
got abducted by
bondage.
the Shi'ar in bondage, and now they're hanging upside down with literally Lalandra spitting in Scott's face. And yeah, this is why later down the line, what happens, why Scott takes it personally.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
just to talk about the art really quickly in these opening pages, I think the art here looks great. I think it does get rushed in certain parts, but here, like Scott upside down with like the helmet over his face, I think that is rendered so well. Absolutely. It's very well done.
It works for what it is. This is like heavy sci-fi, like very like exotic visuals, and it all comes together nicely. I would agree.
It's all right.
All right,
It gets
Flink.
the
No,
chopped.
But I mean, I will say, even with the scripting, with the art, evil Xavier, confused looking Lilandra, Cyclops looking desperate. I agree. There's some good stuff here, and the desperation of the scene is and the intensity of it is palpable, and that a lot of that does come down to the art. It's not just, I mean, obviously Morrison is a master at words, so it's a lot of it's doing the heavy lifting with the scripting, but the art is not doing it any disservices, that's for sure.
And one of the things that they're talking about in these pages, which I don't actually remember this issue. I feel like I was reading this issue for the first time, even though I've read
Mhm.
Morrison in trade. I think the Psi plague was such an interesting thing because the Shi'ar are convinced that the mutants are suffering from the Psi plague. Obviously, it's Cassandra Nova fucking with them, but that's why they're in Earth. That's why the Imperial Guard goes down to Earth. Um, I don't know. Here's some of my gaps in X-Men knowledge. I don't know the history of the Imperial Guard too well, but is this the first time that Oracle is just naked?
Um,
Yes, yes.
mhm.
I was gonna say maybe I'm forgetting some '90s story or something, but number one, I don't recognize like 75% of these Shi'ar characters. I recognize
Yeah,
Manta, and yeah, they keep calling this pale naked lady Oracle, but like, where's the blue skin? Where's the puffy pink costume? Where's the
right.
the blue hair? I mean, I guess this is just sort of what passes for a cool redesign in 2001, but like, you're right. Who are these people?
And this is like the only time she wears this look because she will eventually go
If you
back
can
to,
call it
yeah.
wearing,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
is this? I mean, I
is she wearing?
it's
I
like
was deeply confused as well.
she has blue hair.
And
Like,
skin, I
yeah, and
think.
skin. Like her hair is not blonde and she's not curly. I'm just curious about like what is she going through something here? I don't know. Like, so she arrives naked at the Institute and is immediately apprehended by the Cuckoos, by the way, which I thought this was such a wonderful detail because they have shields up, mental shields up, because they know Jean S. Phoenix is on Earth. They detected the second they land, and Wolverine is, clawing his way through the guards. But the second that Oracle arrives to the Cuckoos are able to bypass her mental security and put her on like a roller coaster.
Which is very funny. Just
Which, yeah, mistake number one is putting that awful telepathy blocking helmet on Emma, but not coming prepared for her girls.
Oh, I know.
mm-mm.
I love that. By the way, okay, the position of that blocking, like the shot of Emma's, head being blocked and like her bust just coming out like that.
Yes,
It,
that's what I'm referring to. It's just
it's a little insane.
yeah.
That's like I don't typically notice stuff like that when it comes to like and it just like I can't help but see that. It's a very suggestive pose that Emma's in.
I mean, it's supposed to
Right.
be. Let's be real. I speaking of, how things are rendered on this page, are the cuckoos back to being different heights, or is that just like perspective?
I thought it was perspective because I was no.
hmm
No, because look at the shot when they're looking at stuff. Some of them do look smaller, like the one
Hmm.
Mm.
behind stuff. You're right. I don't think they got the memo here that the cuckoos are supposed to be all the same, which happened in the previous issue.
They're just making shit up with the cuckoos as they go along, and that's fine. We love the
Yeah,
cuckoos.
we're still in the early stages of Stepford Cuckoos and what they're going to ultimately amount to. Part of me was a little bit, I don't want to say annoyed, but surprised, a little critical of the fact that they were able to take out Oracle so easily. But at the same time, I'm kind of forgiving of it because I mean, Oracle within the context of the Imperial Guard is always presented as like this world class telepath, on par with I don't know, if not Xavier, then like Jean or Emma. But in reality, I think all of her appearances pretty much amount to showing up and getting like one shotted by a more familiar Earth based superhero. So maybe she's not really all she's cracked up to be. I can't say this portrayal is necessarily inconsistent from what we've seen in the past. And look, at the end of the day, there's five of them. She underestimated them, and we're here for the Stepford Cuckoos. So, and
Yeah,
it's a very funny visual metaphor that they give us where they stick her on a out of control roller coaster. Um,
Naked.
naked.
naked, naked with what where she looks absolutely panic stricken.
Well, and this leads to Emma, the allegory of Miss Jean Brodie and Emma being the teacher that grooms these
Mm,
girls, and they're taking a lesson out of Emma's book, which is put Oracle in this insane psychic, where Jean would probably just knock her out. The girls are
right.
actually tormenting, for lack of a better term here, tormenting Oracle. But although all I
Oh,
can think of is Lenore's voice in the Dark Phoenix saga, where she's like, "Oracle girl, you're making this too easy," and then like
Yes.
Oracle just zaps Rogue. Sorry, like what were you gonna say?
well, no, I'm just gonna say, the cuckoos are good at taunting because they after on the next page when Angel like punches Esme's little boyfriend in the face and he reveals his true form as stuff, and they're like, "Ooh, its body it might be made of like this malleable stuff, but its mind is simple. We can program its mind and its body. Now we know he can be the
Mm.
perfect boyfriend." And I'm just like. Damn, the cuckoos, they're here with this shape-shifting alien with a giant butthole face whose mind can be controlled. I'm like, they're into some kinky shit, these cuckoos.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
the boyfriend of dreams.
the and also like with this page two, we have more setup for Angel, where the cuckoos are talking to Angel, and they're like, "Do you know how to fight like a superhero? You look like you've been through shit." And she's here like, "Yeah." And again, it's really curious. And Tim, I'd be curious on your opinion here. We theorized that Angel was being set up for a larger role in the X franchise and possibly one of Wolverine's ingenues. But
Yep.
she gets quickly that this is probably one of the last few pages that we get her doing something before she's joined Soren's special class.
Yeah, I when you guys said that, I remember thinking I had the same thought at the time, and I wondered as well, was that the original intent of Morrison, or was that just us kind of reading into it? Because I feel like there was a fair amount of hype behind Angel's like first appearance in this series, just within like the fan press, right? Like in Wizard and whatnot. We're talking up this new character. Oh, it's a new Angel who's gonna debut in New X-Men, and she's gonna have these crazy, bizarre powers and appearance. And it seemed like there was a big deal made about that, as just her as a new character, just to kind of herald her arrival. And I think people kind of took that and ran with it. There was a lot of, oh, this is just, being done for shock value, or, this feels like derivative of, whatever. Like, why don't you just use Angel? You've already got an Angel. Like, it was a lot of just that kind of chatter. So I remember just a lot of discussion around this
Hmm.
character that sort of amounted to nothing because, as you say, I don't want to say she fizzles out as the run goes on, but she does fade a bit after this opening series of issues where she's been a little more heavily spotlighted.
Yeah, it's just she was heavily spotlit, and it's weird that we don't get a proper follow-up. I mean, her story does, as we get through to Here Comes Tomorrow, we can talk about her journey, but
Hmm.
it's not what we were expecting, that she was like the next Kitty Pryde or Jubilee and was going to be with Wolverine and get their own
Hmm.
spin-off.
Yeah.
But
Editorial ruining Morrison's plans.
yeah. So the next pages actually are pretty interesting because Beast is recapping everything that happened with the nano sentinels that were in their bloodstream, and Jean is telepathically getting the student body, presumably the media, into Cerebra. And it's supposed to be a safe spot because they have like 10 feet worth of steel there, and Jean is really starting to succumb to the virus, and the Shi'ar Guard are attacking. And we get this wonderful scene where one of the Shi'ar Guard, I'm forgetting what's her name. What's her name? Um,
Blimp
is it
or
Blimp?
oh, or Neosaurus.
I think
um,
is it
there's a few of
Neosource?
these.
Yeah.
There's like some new characters in this, and it was I had kind of a hard time keeping track of all of them. There was one called Blimp. There's Neosaurus, who's like a kind of a dinosaur, but is like super smart, I guess. There. Oh, who's the other one?
Oh, it is Neo. So you know who I thought this was? I thought it was, and I'm forgetting her name, where she says, "Your loyalty to this Jean character speaks well of your species, mortal, or whatever,"
mm,
in the Dark Phoenix saga. I thought that's who this was supposed to be, but I think this is Neosaurus because of the pterodactyl
yeah,
wings.
the pterodactyl character. Yes,
Yeah.
and Manta is in here as Flink mentioned. Smasher was like an established, and there's a guy next to Gladiator who I think he was called Quasar before there was another more familiar Quasar in Marvel Comics. I think they changed his name at some point, but he's a guy. He kind of looks like Colossus. But yeah, we've seen him before, and I think other than Gladiator and Oracle, those are kind of the only established. And here's another question I had. I'm sorry. We know these characters as the Imperial Guard. Here they're referred to as the Super Guardians. So
Yeah.
I'm like, is this like a subset within? Is this like a super elite like faction within
That's what I'm
this
thinking. That's
organization?
what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
That's why I think there's so many characters that we don't recognize with kind of the most powerful of the characters that we do sprinkled in. I think this is rather than having the X-Men fight the Imperial Guard again, I think Morrison is at least trying to switch it up and have a team of super guardians rather than and have it be like a separate thing. That was my read
yeah,
on it.
And that would make sense because Morrison, the kind of writer Morrison is, when Morrison gets really excited to do space opera elements. So they would
hmm,
love to do a subset. But also it makes sense from a narrative perspective that the X-Men have already fought the Shi'ar Guard and Phoenix was able to take out the Shi'ar Guard. So if they're going to come on Earth with a Phoenix, the Shi'ar Guard have evolved since then and they have a super special squadron and that would be it here. Just so
right.
the reader can accept that they're fighting, why they're giving the X-Men a run for the money, which, I don't know. I mean, Jean with the pterodactyl character was like, I have special, mental defenses against you, and Jean just kicks it right in the stomach, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I think
I
the other character I don't know that we've seen yet. There's an individual with four arms who appears to be quite purple. um, I think that was that Monstra again, a newer character. I don't even know that they've been on page at this point
Yeah, I think this
in our
was
summary.
thanks to uncannyxmen.net. Blimp, Fader, Monstra, Neosaurus, Plutonia, these are all their first appearances.
Okay, very good.
Oh, wait, no. Monstra and Squirm
Yeah,
first appeared in the previous issue in 123, but are first referred to by name in this issue. Thank you,
gotcha.
uncannyxmen.net. We love them so much.
Oh my God, yeah,
Now I do have to comment a little bit about Jean in these scenes because like her worrying about the ethics of telepathically controlling people and steering them to their safety is just so very Jean Grey. Like Emma
yes,
would Emma would make them shit their pants on the way to
yes,
safety, and Jean is like, "Ooh, I feel
and
like I'm
insult them
reading
the
their
whole time. Yes,
diary." Yeah, and she also Beast is like telling her all of this, like we're being ravaged from the inside by billions of Sentinels, and Jean just like I don't have time for your negativity, like as if as if the power of positive thinking is going to save all of this. Again, it's so correct for Jean
yes.
Grey to behave that way, and then like 2 pages later she puts her unnaturally thin wrists to work and like takes out
Oh
and
my
takes out
God.
Manta. I this The enigma of Jean Grey is so well represented in these pages. Kudos to Morrison for like really showing us all of Jean's sides here in like 3 pages.
Okay, listen, I can't defend Gene as the argument you presented here. The only thing I can say is that I like that Gene is morally aware that telepathically controlling these people. It goes back to the Phoenix Saga, the Dark Phoenix Saga, where she did it with Kitty's parents just really quickly. And it was kind of like a plot point. And here she has grown and she is trying her best not to be that version of a Phoenix. Um, But I agree with you. I don't know how she was able to take down this pterodactyl Neosaurus so easily when it's been established that she is more physically weak. She's buff with her mind and telekinesis.
Now, wait a minute. Just for the sake of clarity, so that I'm not confused, Neosaurus is the one that Wolverine stabs through the brain, and this one
Oh,
flying
is
around
it?
is Manta, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
Manta
that's
that
Manta.
Jean beats the
Okay.
shit out of is
Okay.
Manta. Yeah,
Okay. And
but
Manta's the one from the animated series, right? Where
Yeah, we know
no,
Manta.
yeah,
Manta's the one your
yeah.
loyalty to this Gene character. So then there you go.
I think
That's
she said that.
yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, there we go.
And she like
Manta's
takes
usually
out
yellow.
Wolverine. Yeah.
Hang on.
In the animated series, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
Manta here is purple and has a
right.
wingspan
Hmm.
as well. Not the same colors as before. Okay.
But the
Right. She's a
wingspan
bit
and the
off model.
general.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
a bit off model as well. More recognizable than some other characters, but that's not the Manta that you normally would picture.
Okay, yeah. Manta is with the yellow cape, yellow mask. Here she's purple.
Yup.
Yes,
Yup.
Gotcha. Not
yes.
Neosaurus. Okay,
Neosaurus is dead already.
okay.
Neosaurus got
We
adamantium through the
think.
brain.
Yeah.
And
It
the
sure
reason
looks
Well,
why
it's a
like.
robot brain. It's a robot brain, so they're still alive.
Hmm.
okay, so
He's
Neos
still alive in the clouds somewhere, probably.
he's going to be backed up for. Okay, so the problem I had is that a Neosaurus Wikipedia entry had him and Manta next to each other. Got
Ah.
it. Okay,
Sure,
that's why. Whatever.
sure.
Okay, I'm what. Let's continue. Gene kicks a Shi'ar guard. I agree. That's kind of weird that they're showing that this is supposed to be the best of the best, and
Mm.
Gene is able just to kick and defeat one so
She
easily.
beats her ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
With the flu, no less. Like, come on, Gene. Come on, Gene. Like, good
Listen,
job, good girl.
that's our God Queen. It reminds me a lot, and this would happen. Oh no, this already happened with Generation X, where Emma doesn't have her powers following the Psy Wars, and Banshee's like, "Ha ha ha! Look, you need to be physically ready," and Emma just beats down Banshee.
mm.
Yes.
So that kind of reminded. That's the energy I'm getting from Jean here. Emma would be proud if she saw this. Emma would have applauded Jean in this moment.
If we,
She would have.
if we want to no prize this one a little bit, we could say maybe Jean's physical blows here are maybe enhanced a bit by her telekinesis. I don't know. If it really bothers you that much, I guess you could sort of smooth it over in that fashion.
That's fair. I mean, that's how, Emma uses her latent telekinesis to hold up her costume. So we're just
There
using
you
our
go.
latent,
Yeah,
we're just using
to hold
telekinesis for
the
everything.
bustier and the diaper. Yeah.
So after dispatching the super guardians that were coming for them and the kids, or coming for Beast, Jean, and the kids, Wolverine comes flying through the window, claws out, starts hacking at everyone in sight. Is using an Imperial. What is he? What is it? An Imperial flight patch. Wolverine is airborne. I mean, he's
Hmm.
finally figured out a way to fastball special himself. So good for him. He takes down several more of the Super Guardians. He deflates. I'm not sure who the one he deflates is, but he
Blimp, I
slashes
think.
Blimp. That makes sense because Blimp starts venting biohelium and sort of flying all over the room, calling for Gladiator to come in. So they've dispatched the Guardians that they can, but now Guardian, the Superman analog of the Marvel Universe with a bitchin' mohawk, has
There's a
bust
bitch in
into the
Mohawk.
building. So I have to say, this page where Guardian makes his debut and Wolverine is brandishing his claws, I actually saw the original art for this page in person. And again, like I said earlier, while it's our job to absolutely defend New X-Men, without Hi-Fi Designs colors and just looking at the black and white art for this page, uh, it's
Hmm.
it was pretty bad. It looked pretty rushed. I mean, Wolverine's face looks kind of like mashed potatoes with buck teeth. Uh, it's not great.
Hang on,
Looking at it now.
yeah, I'm zooming in on it. Again, I think. Igor has such a unique art style. And Tim, what you said, I think if Igor's just given the time to do what he needs to do, the art is beautiful. His previous issue, again, we talked about it. I thought the way Jean lit up as a Phoenix was so well done, only he could do it. This issue, you can tell he's on a deadline. And I don't know what's the editorial schedule was at the time, but I think he had to come crashing through editorial because
This is bad.
no
Yes.
one was keeping up with
Yeah.
the schedule, and they
This
didn't
is
want to delay the
bad.
book. Yeah, no, it's yeah.
This is not good. And I
I
mean,
mean,
you guys nailed it earlier. I think it just there's a point in the issue where things start to look rushed, and I honestly think it is this page because if you look at the pages before, there's lots of characters on them. There's still detailed backgrounds. Everybody
mhm.
is
Mhm.
still really expressive. From this point on, we're losing the sort of expressionism. We're losing the detailed backgrounds. It's just very obvious that it's a rush job from here on out.
The thing
Yeah,
is, I don't mind his gladiator, who does look a bit different than other depictions of this character, but I'm kind of okay with what he's going for with Gladiator. But then when you look at Wolverine and just like the next panel, I mean that is a ghastly Wolverine. In ways that, I mean, I know that the character is meant to look a little gnarly, but yeah, something it's way off, way off.
It's bad. It's bad. Like maybe if his face had been battle damaged or something, but we
Right,
can see
right.
that in the previous panel that is not the case. So this is just a sloppy depiction
He
of Wolverine
literally
here.
looks like a rat in this one. Like he does not look like a Wolverine or
No.
yeah.
a
Oh,
wolf or a dog,
yeah,
or he looks like a rat, and
yeah.
Yeah,
His
he's giving
I'm
speed.
Splinter vibes.
Yeah,
Splinter
very
vibes.
much.
it's tough. It's again, it's curious though because New X-Men was such a sales juggernaut for Marvel that I'm shocked that they couldn't get art or plan out ahead
I know.
editorially to make sure. I mean, again, this is your big dog. This is your champ that you're putting in the ring here. Why they weren't taken care of. But I think Xavier in Cassandra Nova's body in that exoskeleton, that shot looks really, really nice. And it's on the following
hmm
page where
Yeah.
Gladiator comes busting through, and we find out that Wolverine fell to Gladiator, and he
And
apologized
which
to Jean.
to be fair, Wolverine's face here, where he's had the shit beat out of him, this looks appropriately
Right.
disgusting and
Right.
bad. But on the previous page, pre-Gladiator fight, it's not good. But you're right. The actual shots of Cassandra Nova and all the tech stuff in this scene and on the following page is pretty good. Pretty good. I'm gonna give it that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've seen great artists like John Cassaday in Astonishing, very talented, was a very talented individual, but you can tell when he's rushed, when the art is just
hmm
rushed and it doesn't look good. So similarly here, it's just rushed art, and it's unfortunate. I think there's some like this issue doesn't stick the landing because as we're going to go through here, like the art feels like they were just running through it, and then the plot just like resolves itself so quickly. I don't understand how Smasher can look at Gladiator, because what happens here is that they bring in Smasher, and Smasher's like, no, the Empress, she has been hijacked by Cassandra Nova, and Gladiator's like, oh, okay, great, you're right. I believe you,
Right.
Smasher.
Right.
When Wolverine, when Cyclops, when everyone in this issue has been telling the Imperial Guards, hey, Cassandra Nova is doing this, like we're innocent, we're not the enemy here. And then it's a dying Smasher that says that, and then Gladiator just like all of a sudden believes it.
I mean, he had to hear it from one of his own, I guess. I mean, the
I was gonna
X-Men, the thing
say, yeah.
they think
Okay.
that the X-Men have a mind virus, that the X-Men's brains are taken over, so they've been like conditioned to not believe anything they say. So when they find one of their own who is like, "No, I can confirm this. This is real. Lilandra herself sent me to Earth before I was able to be corrupted like everybody else, because that was a plot point, a few issues earlier, is it open to Smasher being like the Empire or the wheel is broken, blah blah blah, blah,
Yeah.
and Lilandra specifically sending him to Earth to warn the X-Men. He just warned the cows first. So
Moo.
I can believe it. I can believe it a little bit.
Okay.
It does it
It's a
Well,
does
little
seem
too
to wrap
easy for
up.
me.
Yeah, it wraps up really quickly and smoothly. After all of the 20 prior pages of setting up a huge battle, we finally get to the huge battle, and it's like, oh, JK, no, no, no. They've
Yeah.
been right all along. I get it.
Okay, good.
It
for
makes sense
yeah,
from plot perspective. It makes sense, but it is also a little rushed and too
It,
convenient.
it's a little too rushed and too convenient for Morrison. How about that? Like,
mm-hmm,
I
Yeah,
think
mm-hmm.
Morrison would have just done something a bit more clever. I know Morrison wants to move the story along, but it's coupled with the art that feels rushed. Is the overall
yes,
experience here?
yeah, I
I can
completely agree.
Yeah, and I can buy that the Super Guardians need to hear this from one of their own to be convinced. Absolutely. It just, from like a, I don't know, writerly sort of storytelling standpoint, you sort of want to see your heroes win the day and not just basically get lucky because the guys they're fighting, one of them happens to know the truth. It's like they don't really do anything other than buy themselves some time. Like, what was their plan here if if Smasher hadn't have come around and spilled the beans? Basically, it's just you almost wish it had been a little more clever. Like maybe they managed to capture one of these guys and convince them, and it's just you want them to play a more active role in sort of the resolution of this, and that's not really what we get. We're not reading a Super Guardians comic, right?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
agree with you. And I think we do get that satisfaction though, because I agree with that sentiment that we want them to save the day. Because in the next page, when we wrap up for Zorn and Cyclops in this issue, Cyclops is almost kind of like a mentor to Zorn, where he's here like, just think about that star in your brain, and Zorn unleashes his power. And Zorn is like, I see. And now what, Scott? And Scott's like, and now we try to put things right. And they take down the Shi'ar that are holding them captive. So
Yeah,
I agree. I like that satisfaction that the heroes have somewhat of a plan.
these two do at least.
Yeah, right. Cyclops is always going to have at least 10
Cyclops
plans
does.
running.
But that's
Mm-hmm.
always been one of our criticisms when we've been discussing New X-Men is that they know the Shi'ar are coming, that Cassandra Nova is with the Shi'ar, and yet they're holding a press event at the mansion
Right.
when they know
Right.
there's this imminent threat coming.
Yeah, I mean that's a little confusing to me. I hadn't really thought of it like that where they made it so clear that they were so aware that this massive intergalactic threat is coming their way, and this is the perfect time to have defenseless humans here that we're going to have to protect. It's not a great decision on the part of Gene. I'm going to go ahead and blame Gene for the
No,
timing
you
of
can't
that.
blame G. No, no, not our God Queen.
Listen, okay, Jean doesn't pay attention, and that is evident on this page right here. She's like, Hank, it feels like I'm dying. What did she dose us with? As if Hank didn't tell her 5 times earlier in this issue
I have
what
to
they
tell
were
you,
dosed with.
I agree. I am so tired of Hank being like, nano sentinels, nanos. I don't know if it's just being repeated so the reader could get their head around it. Although, by the way, I was watching the Cowboy Bebop movie last night or 2 nights ago, and there are nano sentinels in there too. So, nano sentinels in like the early aughts, late 90s were a thing,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah,
nano
Nano.
mechanical viruses. I
Listen, it had to take floppy disks weren't a threat anymore, so we had to move on to something
Yeah, we
else.
were done with
Man, yeah.
Y2K, so we had to think like our computers and modems weren't going to turn on us, so we needed something else. But I think it was Morrison just trying to drill that concept into the readers' heads. So
Well,
Again,
why wasn't Jane listening? Jane needs to work on her listening. If not for this, for the sake of her marriage.
well, and and also, by the way, in fairness to you, I will agree because again, Emma is the more press savvy person. So Emma, if it were Emma's like situation here, she would have been like, no, we're gonna hold off on the press event because the Shi'ar are coming. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Jean
Yeah.
definitely, Jean is someone who is talent and needs a publicist. She is not media savvy.
No,
It's
definitely not.
it's
Sorry.
one of those things where you could say maybe it was inevitable. This uh, group of, I guess they're the press, right, are going to show up anyway, regardless. You can't really hold them. That's where you do send out your big guns, meaning Emma, to be like, away with you, rabble, or whatever, and she
Right.
just,
Right.
you know, and they just go about they just turn in the opposite direction and go back to whatever they're doing, at least for the duration of this crisis, we'll say.
I just pictured like the press being like, "What do we do? What do we do?" And Emma's like, "I don't see where that's my problem. You
Right.
guys all die."
Just with a wave of her hand and they're gone, right?
But
Just
but I think also, to point out the obvious here, what Morrison's doing is very clever in that the X-Men have so much at stake with the human media coming. This is the next step in conversations between mutants and humans and finding some sort of harmony and equality. And then, whoops, there's a big space invasion. And where the X-Men could normally handle this, they're physically weakened by Cassandra Nova. And as Jean says here, she thought of everything. So again, we're being funny and facetious here, but I think what Morrison's done with setup here is put the X-Men in a very tight corner.
mhm.
Yeah. And I think so that's sort of what I was I'm going to get into sort of my overall thoughts on the issue here rather than up front because again, while I'm never going to say an issue of Morrison's New X-Men is bad, but like we already knew Scott and Zorn were captured, we knew the Super Guardians were on their way, we knew the team had been dosed with micro sentinels, all of this we knew coming into this issue. So in the context of the Morrison run, this is definitely more moving pieces around on the chessboard than most Morrison issues are. I don't know. It's a little more pre-game than it is actually moving the plot around, especially since the Super Guardians fight ended so anticlimactically. But I'm still entertained. I'm still entertained. And just, of course, any issue with Emma forced into silence for the entire time is not going to be my favorite issue of the run. I mean, she is the star, 100%, has all the best lines in this run. So, good issue, entertaining issue, definitely gets us where we need to be for the final showdown, but this is definitely not my favorite issue of the Morrison run.
I'm going to agree on that. I don't think it's my favorite issue either. It's by no means bad. It's light years better than a lot of the stuff we're getting today. But
Yeah.
if we have to be critical, if there is a weak point in the Morrison run, I think this issue is it. Tim?
My God, you guys, I can't believe you had me on your podcast to talk about this piece of shit. No, I mean,
Tim's like, it's never coming back again.
no. I think I was entertained sums it up pretty nicely with respect to
Yeah.
this issue. I don't have a lot of qualms with it. What I ultimately it comes down to, I think this suffers from like middle chapter syndrome,
Yes.
where
Yeah,
it
fair,
just has
fair.
to move things along. And having said that, I think Morrison is better at most, even in a middle chapter, of giving you a little more to sink your teeth into.
Agreed.
And this was maybe lacking in that aspect as opposed to other maybe middle chapters of Morrison arcs. So, that combined with what we've said about the art, it is maybe a lower ebb during this run, which is very celebrated. I do feel like it is a strong issue for Beast. I know we're not big Beast stands here.
This is
Um,
the best Beast. New
I'm
X-Men
hearing,
Beast is a
Yeah.
completely different character.
yeah, I'm
So,
hearing Dayspring screaming about how he's a fucking sociopath.
I
This is like a good standout. He has that moment where I think he says something like, "I'm reclaiming my self-esteem."
yeah.
Which has been a bit overdue, I think, for this character, given what he has been through in just a few issues now, and so he kind of shines, kind of giving X-Men: The Last Stand Kelsey Grammer just the way that he fights. I feel just kind of that melee fighter that he's presented as. I think comes off pretty well. And then I do really enjoy the last page where, I mean, to say nothing of Beast getting his groove back, Cyclops has been a little overdue for that as well.
Yeah.
And it's a nice setup for our next issue, which it was hard for me not to just keep reading, right? So it
Oh,
does
that's so
accomplish,
hard.
It's
yeah,
so
it does accomplish that where I'm like, I'm okay to put this issue down, but I'm really wanting to pick up the next one now.
Yeah, that's a really valid
Definitely.
point, Tim, because again, I think there's a lot of like Cyclops. I hate to say it like this, but Cyclops is cool at the end, where we've seen him kind of like
Hmm.
very
Hmm.
introverted, dealing with everything that happened in the search for Cyclops. He's here like he's ready to fight. He's a strategist. He knows what to do. We see Beast building that confidence, and Jean at this point has already sort of been where she's at. So yeah, there's a lot of good setup. It establishes that the Stepford Cuckoos are a hive mind, and you don't want to fuck with them. Not only
Mm.
are they a hive
Yeah.
mind, but they're being trained by Emma, and Emma, as we will see later on, is very proud of her girls, and they're she's teaching them how to be skillful. If they're not the biggest powerhouse, they know how to use their powers better than other people. So, Oracle could be more powerful than the Stepford Cuckoos, but the Stepford Cuckoos are more cunning and skilled, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that does
Hmm.
make sense. Uh, I have a couple thoughts on the closing pages with
Sure.
Cyclops and Zorn. Like, first off, I just want to say, like, the visual and the idea of the Shi'ar are this incredibly high-tech race with so much crazy technology, and the way that they're going to dispatch of Zorn and Cyclops is to literally put them in a giant cannon and shoot them out into Earth's atmosphere. I think that is just
Yeah.
chaotic and great, and just so like kind of camp, to be perfectly honest. Like it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
giant gun that they're going to be launched out of, and I
It is giving
just
a little Adam West Batman, isn't it? I mean,
it is, and I think camp in comics is always a good thing from my perspective. I think that's what makes comics so great, is their ability to be a little bit more absurd than a lot of movies or television could be. But more important than that, Zorn using his powers to take down G-Type, who Cyclops specifically says is solar plasma. Just for people who have never read this run before, we need to be paying close attention to every
mhm.
single time that Zorn uses his powers. So I'm not going to say much more than that, other than I guess G-Type's containment suit must be made from some kind of space metal. I don't know.
This is true. I agree. I was
Or
thinking that
is
too.
there's like an electromagnetic field situation going on because of his body chemistry, maybe? I don't know. Is he like composed of energy of some sort that maybe can be manipulated by someone with such capabilities as Zorn, whose head is a star, as we're told.
Just
Love the fact that in this dire situation where they're about to be, I think, as the Shi'ar refer to it, atmospherically cremated. Again, launched out of a cannon through the atmosphere, which, I mean, will get the job done. Well, let's face it. But, you know, in dire peril, these two, and Cyclops turns it into like a learning experience. Like, hey, we're constant teachers, right? We're constant students. Zorn, you're new. I love how Cyclops is sort of flippant about the fact that I think I can get my arm free. Like he could have like escaped at any time, but he's like, no, there's a lesson in this. I think we could kill two birds with one stone here. And just that's the cool confidence I love from Scott Summers.
I love
well,
cool confidence from him too.
speaking of cool confidence, the issue ends on a splash page, and the central image of that splash page is just Cyclops cheesing like big time. He's like, "Hell yeah!" Now we get to have some real fun with this. And honestly, they're like for a really long time, several years, in fact, it took me a few reads of this issue to realize that they are not going to like surf out in space on these Shi'ar bodies, because it looks like they
Oh,
are. I mean, obviously they're not going to, but just the way that it's drawn, it kind of looks like they're going to be surfing on G type and some Shi'ar guard out this big hole in the spaceship.
Because you're thinking
that'd
of
be
the
kind
end
of
of
amazing.
Batman and Robin, where they explodes and they like surf back down to the
Oh
surface.
God.
Yeah,
Oh
The
my
yeah. I
God.
campness, yeah.
mean,
Yeah, I
the
would love that.
campness of it all. This is giving Joel Schumacher vibes.
Oh my
I can't
God.
help myself.
Did you see that Alicia Silverstone clip I sent you where she's here like, oh, we did Batman and Robin and it wasn't really well received. But then years later, all my friends and people were coming up to me saying that that was her favorite Batman movie. And then she pauses and she's like, and they're all gay. I was like, yes,
Yeah,
that's
like yeah,
right.
we love that
Unnecessary.
shit.
Unnecessary.
I feel called out.
Alicia Silverstone, I've never been seen before by you until this very moment. But yeah, I mean, so a necessary point to get to the next issue, but not the strongest issue. But again, as Tim and Flink said, I agree. It kept me wanting to read more, mostly because of the intrigue of the Shi'ar. I didn't really know which character was which, but also Morrison, when they scale back their Morrison-ness and can just tell about some kind of like space politics, I'm really into it. And I think New X-Men is a great cultural sample. When Morrison's on point with their Space Odyssey, they're on point.
Yes, I agree. And uh, it all leads us to a really great next issue, a really great ending to this story. Like, I don't think there's necessarily anything in this issue that could be taken out, but it is just firmly, like Tim said, it is just firmly middle chapter. Not, and that's not a criticism. That's just what it is.
You've really got me stuck on the visual now of Cyclops gliding out on into space on fucking Lilandra's dead body. Just
Yeah, like does it? I'm
hate
not
her so much.
crazy. It looks like they're gonna like go surfing out into outer space on these bodies. I
She
kind of wish that they
sucks.
did.
I agree. I
Yes, I
mean,
do
this is
too.
he's here like this is for my dad, Lilandra. This is for my mom, Lilandra. And
Catherine
This
Ann
is for my mob.
Summers.
Fuck you.
by the way, to the casual reader at the time, Lilandra looks dead here.
I wish she was. Yeah.
She looks kind of dead. So it's interesting. Um, but yeah, no, I agree. I think solid B plus, not a bad issue by any means in terms of comic history, but all right. Well, so that is our read of New X-Men 124. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. What for the family at home, where can they find you? What do you have coming up?
So I always joke, it's sort of an inside joke amongst me and my friends that I am a semi-retired podcaster these days. So I don't. I mean, I do have two regular gigs. Having said that, but no. I mean, in terms of other X-Men related content for me, I do a show called Exposition, which I like to call a multimedia X-Men podcast. We are primarily focused on covering X-Men the animated series, just kind of going episode by episode through that. About halfway through the second season now, but that is a show I do with my dear friends Jennifer Smith and usually Keithy Langston. Comes out irregularly, we'll just put it that way. So I can't really tell you when to look for it, so to speak, but that is part of a podcast network called the North South Connection. So just look for North South Connection. When it does drop, it tends to be not exactly monthly, but you can look for it over there on the North South Connection, which has a lot of other pop culture related content. So beyond that, getting back to '90s fandom, Beverly Hills 90210. This is also in association with the North South Connection. Do a show with my friend JT Rosero. It is called 9021 No So. A little bit of a mouthful there, but alliterative, so fun. That's its own thing. You can search 9021 NOSO on your preferred podcatcher app, as we say, and you'll find that all of our episodes. That is a bit more regular. It's every third Friday, we'll say. So sometimes you'll get it twice a month, usually just once a month. But just covering episode by episode of Beverly Hills 90210, the OG, and we're about closing in on the home stretch of the third season. So we're about to finish up the high school years, which feels like a big milestone for
It is.
myself and my partner in crime there. Yeah,
I listen, when they graduated high school, anyways, it was a big moment back in the 90s for us watching Fox
sure.
Primetime. But yeah, it's super easy to find your podcast, by the way, because I've listened to it and you just type in North-South Connection and it's all clearly labeled in that network. So super easy. And I enjoy
I'm
your
glad you said
podcast
that
so
because I
much.
wonder sometimes.
No, it's super
It's
easy.
not my department as far as that. Yeah, I'm not part of the administration. Again, I'm semi-retired, so I just show up when they tell me to.
Flink, do you have anything coming up?
Not really. I mean, we have, I've been really busy at work. We have another huge sale coming up in mid-September that we have a catalog dropping for. I was chasing my tail on this one for like 2 months straight, but I think it's got some of the coolest stuff we've ever offered and has some of my best hype writing in it. So yeah, that's about it for me. I mean, I hope to have more fun stuff than work coming up in the near future, but when your job's as cool as mine, is it? I'm not
Yeah.
really complaining.
Let's see. Pittsburgh Comic Con, Erie Comic Con, New York Comic Con. I have tickets and assets all lined up for them, but I've gotten booked for work every single weekend of those cons. So if we're there, I'm so especially New York Comic Con. I can't. I'm going to be in DC. I have to come back to Miami and then Pittsburgh during New York Comic Con. So I think we only have one night there. But Lenore and I and Daryl are going to do a reading in Manhattan. So we'll talk about those particulars once we have them. And hopefully we can make it to Erie Comic Con because Scott Lobdell is going to be there, and I really want to see Scott. So I'm going to
Mm.
try hard, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do Pittsburgh Comic Con, even though I have a pass for it. Ah, and Lenore will
Sorry,
be there.
Pittsburgh.
But you know what? Go see Lenore.